Hi everyone, Chillax here, and welcome back to another Anchor Panic video. So in part 2 to this 15-part series in which I go in chronological order over every single unreleased CN operator, today we will be going over Alpine, who is a nature breaker. Now one thing I want to point out is that actually both Jade in the previous video as well as Alpine in this video were released before Thunder Rock and Abyss Elysia respectively. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that for global server we did skip Jade and Alpine. We actually hopscotched 3 operators to Abyss Elysia, then backtracked to Thunder Rock. So what I anticipate is that next month in January we either will get Jade or we will get Alpine. It really depends on how the story plays out for chapter 10, whether they release that or they decide to release another event story, kind of like what's going on right now with Thunder Rock. So anyways, without further ado, let's begin. Let's of course whet our appetite with some spicy skins. So as you see before you, this is the default art for Alpine. I think this art is actually pretty cool. And then this was the skin that came simultaneously with her release. And then a year later, after her initial release, they released another skin, which was this one right here. Oh my god, it's so spicy. Yeah, so they definitely went the extra mile when it came to the spiciness of the skins. But anyways, let's dive into the meat of this video, which is probably the reason why you guys came, right? Her kit. And of course I need to give a huge shout out to Qua. Shout out to you, my man. He is a CN player who helped me take screenshots of the character profile, the skills, the Ascension, the Sigil of every single CN operator across 80 pages. Yeah, 80 pages of screenshots. So without him, none of these videos would be possible. So thank you so much, Qua. Alright, let's get to it. So this is the opening screen of Alpine when you go into her character profile. Like I mentioned before, she's a nature breaker, and I do want to specify that she is part of a standard banner, which means that you will be able to fail the 50-50 for her in the future after her banner rotates out. So you shouldn't feel FOMO over pulling for her, especially if you're not sure if the nature element is worth summoning for right now. And moving on to her talent 1. Her talent 1 states that each time Alpine uses a skill, she gains 1 stack of resolve, up to a maximum of 2 stacks. When an allied unit takes action, they consume 1 stack of resolve, granting plus 12% damage against weak points, plus 12% defense penetration lasting 1 turn. And by the way, Quad did warn me that there's 4 or 5 different kinds of stats that are in CN server that are not in global server. So there is a possibility that this 1 stack of resolve might only give defense penetration and maybe a second stat of something else, because we don't have weak points in global server. I think that was one of the 5 that Qua was telling me. He told me like an hour ago, but I kind of forgot already. And then if the ally is a nature attribute unit, they gain additional plus 14% damage over time damage. Interesting. Okay, so what this essentially means is that Alpine, whenever Alpine casts a skill, she gains a stack that can be consumed by an ally to further increase their damage output. That's essentially what this is saying. So that's very interesting for a breaker. Alright, so now for talent 2, let me just, okay. For talent 2, while she is in a rage or burst state, she gets 40% block chance, and she gets 20% increased defense ignore. This is defense penetration, by the way. So we'll find out later how she goes into her rage or burst state. I believe it's from her energy burst, but we'll keep reading. So essentially, when she goes into the state, she has more damage mitigation and she has more defense penetration. So, that makes her a very effective damage dealing breaker. Okay, and then basic attack is nothing to write home about, just vanilla damage. And then her skill 1. So in the global server, we only have one skill, that's it. But in the CN server, there's a skill 1 and skill 2. And Qua, my CN player, I call him Mines, but yeah, our CN player, he did tell us in Discord, the Anchor Panic Discord, that skill 2 might not ever come to global. But I do want to point out that when it comes to a damage dealing operator like Alpine, I kind of wonder if skill 2 will inevitably come to global, because if I was to decrease the size of this for a brief moment, you'll notice that for skill 1 it is a single target on this position, whereas for skill 2, if I was to decrease this a little bit, the targeting is like the entire front row. So I kind of feel like if you take out one skill of a DPS, it really impacts their ability to do damage, right? But who knows? Anyways, likely skill 1 will be the one that translates over to global. Essentially what it does is it deals nature damage over time damage to the front row enemy equal to 145% of her attack. The final hit additionally applies 2 stacks of corrosion. And if we were to go into the game for a brief moment to kind of touch on corrosion, which is something we don't really know much about, or I don't really pay attention to it that much because we don't really have any nature operators right now. So if I activate the homology, yeah, so corrosion reduces enemies' natural resistance and further reduces the enemy percentage defense at full stacks. Interesting. So you're basically able to do more nature damage to them and their defenses go down. And I assume it's 6 stacks once again. Yeah, so okay. So it seems like nature is all about defense penetration, huh? That seems to be the idea. Okay, and that does make sense because we've already read some parts of her kit that are on a defense penetration. Okay, so let's keep going here. And it's interesting that we have damage over time. That is something that I believe the SR hero, Flower Girl, nature operator has as well. Dot damage. Okay, so skill 2, this might not come to global, at least in the near term. She deals dot damage and 1 stack of corrosion. So it's like a weaker damage multiplier and 1 stack of corrosion as opposed to 2. But it's the entire front row. Okay, and then for her energy burst, when Alpine enters the burst state, all allies except Alpine herself gain a guard effect for 2 turns. Okay, so this burst state is a state that she enters when she does the energy burst, and this is the rage thing if we scroll upward to talent 1. While this guard is active, each time an ally is attacked, Alpine will counterattack the attacker. Kind of like Tia. And then she deals nature damage equal to 196% of Alpine's attack. She ignores 20% of the target's defense, and it can trigger up to 4 times. Damage dealt by these counterattacks is considered energy burst damage. And the reason why it's specified energy burst damage is because We do have some operators like Rose, who gets ammo whenever an ally casts their skill, as well as Abyssalicia, who gets the revival stacks based of Abyss Return based on the number of skills your allies do. So, you know, each skill contributes to an Abyss Return stack. Here, these counterattacks count as an energy burst damage, not skill, so it won't proc those, you know, stacks of the allies. Okay. And then Ascension 6, so this is whale territory. With Ascension 6, she gets +2 stacks of resolve at the start of battle, as well as 50% energy immediately. So she'll be able to burst on turn 1. And then the resolve stacks, that was the stack from Talent 1 where an ally, when they act, consumes 1 resolve stack that she's holding in order to do additional damage, right? Because when we go back to the Talent 1, yeah, that ally has additional defense penetration and another stat buff. And if it's nature operator, they do additional 14% dot damage. Okay. Yeah, and then for the signature Sigil, okay, so this is interesting because her signature Sigil has speed in it. There's only one other DPS that has that, and that's Tia. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the Sigil effect, she also does critical weak point damage. Now this weak point damage, I don't know what that is. So and it might be a CN exclusive thing. So on global side, I think it makes perfect sense to just make this crit damage, or like defense penetration if you want to go with the nature themed. And then when equipped by Alpine, basic attack plus 7.5%. Oh, okay, we already have defense penetration. Defense ignore plus 15%. While in her burst state, so this is like the enraged state, she grants a self guard, okay, and then counterattack damage plus 1 hit. So she does the counterattack twice instead of once. Yeah, so having her signature Sigil includes herself as a proc for the counterattack. And at the start of each round, Alpine gains 1 resolve stack. Ah, okay. So if you have her equipped with the Sigil and Ascension 0, she basically gets 2 resolve stacks per round. 1 from her Sigil and 1 from her passive 1. And that's pretty much it, guys. So, my initial impression of her is that, okay, she's a breaker who can counterattack, so it's entirely possible her cumulative damage output could be significant. And she also has the ability to provide allies defense penetration, which is something that I don't think any other ally currently does. So I think that's pretty interesting, and in some ways it makes her kind of splashable in other teams. Because like with a nature operator ally, she provides them additional dot damage, but the defense penetration, I would argue, might be a more valuable stat line, and she gives it to anyone. So anyways, guys, what do you think of this nature breaker? Do you think she will revive the nature element, which is kind of on life support right now? Let me know in the comment section below. And you know, these videos take time to prepare, so I greatly appreciate if you drop a like, comment, and perhaps subscribe to support me and help me with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.